Hi, Emily.
Hi, Savannah.
Welcome.
Welcome to you.
Thanks.
This is Evermore.
It is. It's the sister album of Folklore
Which we loved.
We loved Folklore. You know, Folklore is the favorite sister, I think, for both of us.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Evermore is 6 months younger, came out in December of 2020. It is the winter to Folklore's summer, and in Taylor Swift's own words, it is more of the sad love stories than Folklore's happier ones.
And it definitely feels like it. This album is kind of a downer, to be honest.
It really feels quite slow. I think I told you when we started listening, I was like, this is a really long album. Is it any longer than Folklore? No, it is not. But it feels longer than Folklore.
It did. Yeah. Speaking of Folklore, I wanted to go back, and we ended the last episode with a discussion of the song Hoax, and we noticed the connections between Hoax and My Tears Ricochet.
Yeah, with the line Ashes and Fire.
The thing about Ashes and Fire being connected, and also the connection that we did not address was the screaming off the cliffside. In My Tears Ricochet, she talks about the stolen lullabies. I still talk to you when I'm screaming at the sky. And then we see her screaming at the sky in Hoax, which...
And she's saying, give me a reason.
Right. And we discussed the possibility of Hoax being about a miscarriage, which seemed to fit except for those connections.
Lines. Yeah.
Which is very strange. Like, there was something that like was not quite clicking.
It's like 9/10 of the way there.
Right.
And you had an epiphany. Haha.
An epiphany. Given everything that you argued about the meaning of My Tears Ricochet, I think that gives us an insight into Taylor's view of herself and her legacy, because it definitely feels like Hoax is about a miscarriage or about the loss of...
Like a very significant loss, more so than any of the loves that she's talked about losing in the past. It feels much more personal.
And I think that's because she is mourning the loss of her legacy in the form of her songs. I think she views her songs as her children, basically.
Yeah.
Where she's
leaving
made
behind.
them.
Yeah.
And they've been stolen in this moment that she's reflecting. I don't know, maybe she's over it by the time she's writing the song when she's remembering how she felt. Or maybe she's still feeling all those things. But I think that speaking of her frozen ground, which we kind of suggested could indicate barrenness of some sort, I think that might be her reflecting on her music.
Yeah. And she talks about her, like the theme of her land, her hometown, those things often come up in her work. So using a frozen ground metaphor does sort of fit the bill there. And I was also thinking about the bonus track on Folklore, The Lakes. She talks about a red rose grew up from my ice frozen ground. And that's, The Lakes is her talking about going off to England with her lover, where the poets went. And then she, writes a whole album out there. So that also fits. And I think you hit
out of the barrenness.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really think you connected those ideas perfectly. I do think she thinks of her work as like her baby, her everything, her legacy, what she's leaving behind. So we had to address that because it was big enough.
Right. It felt like I was listening back through our last episode prior to release, and I was like, I feel like we missed something huge here.
Yeah. Also, I do think it ties into Evermore. I think Happiness is a reflection back on her relationship with, I don't think Scooter Braun necessarily, but maybe Scott Borchetta, who owned her music prior, and having her say like basically everything that you did, it did cause happiness, even though it's gone.
Yeah.
And then she's saying, I'm not sure who the new me is yet, but I think she'll give you the green light of forgiveness that she's talking about. So I think when she was writing Folklore, she probably hadn't had that epiphany yet. But
there's definitely a resonance there with the way she talked about crossing out the good years.
Yes.
That's definitely echoed in the song Happiness, which is track 7 on Evermore. So we complained about Evermore a little bit right off the bat, but we both really love certain songs from this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, do you want to kick it off?
I'd like to kick it off with Willow. It has a music video, which ties in super well with Folklore music videos as well. Lots of the golden sparklies.
Shimmery magic.
The shimmery magic and everything.
Fantasy, escapism, which is like the entire theme of these two albums, which is lovely.
Love it. And I mean, it just starts off with strong poetry. I'm like the water when your ship rolled in that night, rough on the surface, but you cut through like a knife. And I'm like, that's a good, wow.
Yeah, it's solid all the way through, and it feels like real folk music.
It does.
I don't know how better to express that feeling, but it does feel like she's settling into this genre more than a lot of other songs on this album, to be honest. But that's, I think, one of the stronger offerings.
And I think, I mean, we both read through the liner notes for this album, I think, because we were grasping a little bit for context. Because I don't know, like I mentioned, there are songs on this album that are strong and I really enjoy them. But overall, I don't sit down and listen to Evermore in its entirety the same way I do for Folklore. But the liner notes gives a lot of context about like, she said, we just couldn't stop writing songs. We wanted to return to this forest of music. And it does have, all of these songs do have that foresty vibe. I'm so sorry. I don't have another word for the feeling of something anymore.
Tone. Yeah.
Sure.
Connotations.
Love
musical
that.
Connotations.
Gen Z has hacked my tiny monkey brain and inserted all of their lingo. And I started saying stuff like that ironically, and now I say it unironically.
Yeah, that's how they get you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and even in Willow, she says, "I come back stronger than a '90s trend," which is strong Gen Z.
Yeah, that's a Gen Z sentiment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a gem, and I love that this album starts off with Willow.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I also like Gold Rush, I think is a wonderful. Ivy and Long Story Short. I would say those are my favorites besides Willow.
Interesting. I think Willow and Ivy live in a similar spot in my brain. I mean, it could just be because they're both named after plants. That could be
that's fair.
But they feel musically similar to me also, I think. And they're nice. They're both very nice.
Yeah.
No Body, No Crime.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. I did forget. Can't forget No Body, No Crime.
This is a solid song.
It
oh,
is
my
a
word.
banger.
It's classic. It feels like the best of classic country music.
Yes.
Where it's got revenge, it's got intrigue, it's got that thing you call reframing where she uses the same words and the meaning is slightly changed every time you hear it. It's
a whole story. It's a whole story, whole murder mystery.
Escalates perfectly. Country blues instrumentation, slower vocal styling, which I think really does her credit. It shows off her best vocal work, I think.
I love that tone and that register that she kind of sits in and plays in this song. It's so good. I sang this at a karaoke night one night because it's just such a good time. And if you haven't heard this song before, the twist at the end gets ya. And she's a genius. This shows her lyrical genius in this song.
Yeah. And I think my other favorite would be, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to say my two favorites are Willow and No Body, No Crime. Tolerate It, I think, is painful. And so in that sense, it is good poetry. It does evoke all the feelings that it's meant to. And it's just tragic.
Yeah. It's the track 5.
It's the track 5 for a reason. Yeah. It's just a really tragic story. And I think if the rest of the album were not quite so melancholy, it would stand out a little bit more and really punch. But as it is, it's kind of like the saddest song on a very sad album.
Yeah, I mean, it's an album marked with like failing relationships in a variety of different ways, whether that be murder or indifference to the umpth degree on Tolerate It, or infidelity in Ivy, which I hate to say it, but Ivy gets you rooting for the cheating couple.
Right. And that's a complexity that we can appreciate, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you had mentioned something about the botanical meaning for Ivy, which I had never thought about before at all.
Yeah, I remember based on a short story I was assigned to write in high school that Ivy was
back to high school.
The traditional plant symbolizing true love.
I believe that she knew.
I
knew that. I would put that right in her alley. Absolutely. And it's a good poem when you strip it down.
Yeah.
I love it musically.
The parallelisms are great.
Yeah. I'd meet you where the spirit meets the bones in a faith forgotten land. In from the snow. Your touch brought forth an incandescent glow. Tarnished but so grand. Yeah.
And she knows it's a sad album, right? Like she said that in the liner notes. And opening with Willow, the weeping tree. We should
come
know
on.
where this is going.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that going back to Ivy again, it's such a powerful image of, so the ivy representing true love is what she's using to describe her lover as. Like, her hand's been promised to another, but she can't stop you putting roots in my dreamland, my house of stone, your ivy grows, and now I'm covered in you. What a beautiful image for something so awful.
Right. Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that ivy will tear houses down. Like, it's a menace. It's an absolute menace. And so she knows this. She addressed this in Illicit Affairs. Like, she knows that this is destruction. It's just very slow and beautiful destruction. And in the end will not be beautiful. But
there's also a line in this song that we paid attention to, I think, later in the album. Crescent moon, coast is clear, spring breaks loose, but so does fear. And that line, spring breaks loose, is giving very Persephone and why am I forgetting his name? Hades. Thank you. The goddess of springtime and the god of the underworld that get married, and she has to spend half of her time in the underworld, and it'll connect in another song.
What song is that?
That's in the bonus track, It's Time to Go, where she's talking about, really in the song, she's contemplating if it's time to leave a relationship and the signs of that. One of the lines is, now he sits on his throne in his palace of bones, praying to his greed. And
Hades.
I mean, if that's not an image of Hades, I don't know what is.
Which is interesting because this is the winter album, right? And so she's casting forward to the end of winter when spring comes, which is interesting because when spring comes, you know that spring was always coming. But when you're in the winter, it feels like winter is forever.
Yeah, but spring starts in the soil before winter has even begun. That's just a person fact, not even a Taylor Swift fact. Anyway, I think those are interesting lines that she includes. I don't really know their full meaning. I would have to dwell on it a little more, but it catches my eye because I love Greek mythology.
Yeah, I was going to say you're like the Greek mythology girl.
I enjoy it so much. But you mentioned Gold Rush. Did you mention Gold Rush?
You mentioned Gold Rush.
I mentioned Gold Rush because it's one of my favorites and I'm going to talk about it. I love, for some reason, a ship metaphor in like sinking in waves, and she uses that fairly often. And it opens out with the intro, gleaming, twinkling, eyes like sinking ships on waters, so inviting I almost jump in. This was one of my favorite songs, not just because I like the rhythm and I like it musically, but I unabashedly think that it's about Harry Styles.
That would make it your favorite.
And like looking back on this with us trying to be as unbiased as possible, it's very possible that it's about Joe Alwyn. But I mean, One Direction has a song called Fool's Gold. This is a gold rush. She's basically talking about in the chorus how she doesn't like that anyone would die to feel your touch. Everybody wants you. Everybody wonders what it would be like to love you. And if that's not a description of like girls chasing after like a celebrity crush, I don't know what is.
Musically, I think it's a really interesting song. Sorry, I'm using the word interesting a lot this album, and I have always thought that it is an intellectual cop-out. It's like, here's a comment. I don't know why it should mean anything. But
tell me what's interesting about it.
What's interesting about it is the modulation.
What?
Where it changes keys. It feels novel. It doesn't feel like it's falling into the pattern of the other Taylor Swift songs in general or of the other folk songs in general. For instance, Champagne Problems, there's kind of a 5-to-1 melody lick in the bridge, and it's like, you knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming. Sure, Jan. I knew that was coming.
It's a pattern.
Yeah.
And it's a pattern because it works. But when you listen to the pattern a lot of times, it's really nice to hear something different like Gold Rush. So thanks, Taylor. I appreciate that. But the line that I love from this song is in the refrain. The coastal town we never found will never see a love as pure as it, because it fades into the gray of my day old tea. It's nice.
It works, you know?
Tea, Earl Grey, hot.
The English.
Yeah.
Harry Styles is English. So is Joe Alwyn. I roll my eyes.
She loves a London boy.
She does love a London boy. But what must it be like to grow up that beautiful with your hair falling into place like dominoes? Harry Styles' hair is one of the things that is most talked about, like, of his features. I will never back down. I believe it's about him. Anywho, that doesn't really matter. It is a great poem.
It is.
I think Coney Island is a song that we should talk about. I think it's interesting just based on one of the comments that you made about the different allusions that are made to previous songs. One of them is her allusion to delicate. Did I close my fist around something delicate? On the surface, it feels, you know, like she's thinking about a love that is slipping away or has been lost. But when you get down into the different allusions that are present here, it's a combination of references of different loves in her life. And so it might be a collection of like wondering, where did my baby go?
Yeah, there's a sense of having wrecked something almost by wanting it and by pursuing it. That's one of the most tragic concepts in literature, in my opinion.
Oh no. Losing something that you wanted by chasing it down.
Yeah.
Oh, what's the best example of that? I'm trying to think of a literary.
Probably Orpheus and Eurydice.
Oh, yeah. Give a quick recap to the non-Greek mythologists out there.
So Orpheus and Eurydice is the story of a pair of lovers. Eurydice was the lady, and she was kidnapped by the Lord of the Underworld and taken below. He loved her. He built her a house. He was like Bowser and Peach, except she actually couldn't help but go down to the underworld. I'm sorry.
Bowser and Peach, as
like in the Super Mario movie.
Okay, yeah. Is there another Bowser and Peach? Yeah. I just wanted to check that's where we went from Greek mythology to Nintendo.
Bowser is one of my favorite villains of all time. He's just great.
He's great.
But the idea is the Lord of the Underworld takes Eurydice down, and she becomes the Queen of Hell, if I recall correctly.
She does.
But Orpheus,
oh wait, no, Eurydice?
Yeah.
Persephone becomes Queen of Hell.
Well, yeah, but like in a sense, she's still like the queen. Like the Lord of the Underworld did take her. It's like a different Lord of the Underworld, right?
No, but okay.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, effectively. You can also see Moulin Rouge, which is a somewhat contemporary retelling of this story, where Satine, the lady, she's the ruler of the underworld, but she's a prisoner.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Okay,
and her love comes to rescue her. Orpheus / whatever Ewan McGregor's character's name was. I just remember him as Ewan McGregor, because what else do you need?
You don't need anything else.
But so
Christian,
Orpheus,
that's his name.
Christian? Okay.
That's wow.
Wow. No chance that's symbolic at all. But anyway, so Orpheus comes to the underworld, swims through the river Styx, whatever, gets to the underworld, and is like, I'm going to take you home. And the captor of Eurydice says, okay, but wait, does he set the conditions? Remind me.
I think I should have told this story.
You definitely should have told the story.
He definitely doesn't go through the river Styx.
Oh, whoops.
He finds a different entrance into the underworld.
Because river Styx would take away his memories.
It
right?
would take away his memories,
and
also he would have to go past Cerberus in, gosh, I'm forgetting.
In the ferry?
Something like that. No, Cerberus is the three-headed dog.
Right. And there's also, there's a ferryman
over
the river Styx.
Charon. Anyway, none of this matters. So he finds a different way down to find the soul of his wife in the underworld, and because he loves her so much. And you can take souls from the underworld, you just can't look back when you're trying to take them out. And so he lures her with a lyre, and he's playing a song for her so she will follow him. And
he has to trust that she's following.
Yeah, but he can't contain it. He has to know that she's behind him, and all his efforts were not in vain. So he looks behind him to check if she's there, and her soul disperses forever because
he looked back.
He looked back. She's not even in the underworld anymore. She just fades.
Gone.
Yeah,
you definitely should have told this story.
I'm so sorry. I was looking for other instances of allusion in Coney Island, which is what we're actually talking about.
Right, Coney Island.
Let's see.
There's the distant birthday party accident allusions.
Where is that one? There's also Did I Paint Your Bluest Skies, the Darkest Gray. Just more of her color theming that she's been using throughout her works, where blue is loss.
So I was talking about the bridge.
Oh, okay.
Were you standing in the hallway with a big cake? Happy birthday. She talked about an incident where her man had not been able to show up for her birthday, and she felt really forsaken.
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. And then there was an accident, although I think this is her singing about herself being, no, it is the guy in an accident, which was in Out of the Woods, where she talks about the snowmobile accident with Harry Styles.
Very good.
I am getting so well versed in Taylor Swift's mythology. Clearly better than with Greek mythology.
Well,
I can sing you the songs from Moulin Rouge, but can I recap the story? No.
That's fine. The songs are the best part of that movie.
It's true.
Okay, but yes, so Coney Island, I think, like you said, is just kind of reminiscing on all her loves kind of combined and wondering what happened there. Another story we could talk about is Long Story Short, because that is a whole mood. I love this one. It's giving the same sort of tempo as The Last Great American Dynasty, which we also love on Folklore. And this one just has really good allusions to Alice in Wonderland, because I fell from the pedestal right down the rabbit hole. Long story short, it was a bad time. Pushed from the precipice, clung to the nearest lips. Long story short, it was the wrong guy.
That's great.
That's a solid chorus right there.
Absolutely.
Wow. So just the whole song, it's got tight lines, and I love that. And also it just kind of makes sense and is relatable, you know, all of these things. It's a song of kind of looking back on your mistakes, and you were like, yep, that happened. Clung to the nearest person, that was the wrong thing to do. This situation happened. Long story short, that was a bad time. But I survived.
And so many of the tragedies that we see on this album are the consequence of telling the long story, right? Where like they are all in the past, and all of the tragedies we encounter at some point are in the past. And so many times art comes out of meditating on the torment and meditating on the in-betweens and the not quite resolutions. But there's a different sort of reflection that comes with the, you know what? It was just a bad time.
Exactly.
We're not there anymore.
Yeah. And I appreciate that she has at least 2 songs on the album that are like that. This one and Happiness, where it's both just kind of looking back like, that happened, but, you know, it'll be okay. There's going to be happiness. There's going to be probably forgiveness. So long story short, was a bad time.
Closure is kind of similar. The same thing from a different angle, I think. Where she's the narrator has received a letter from an old flame and is meditating on the attitude that must have prompted the letter, I think, where he reached out because he's bothered and he thinks that communicating with her, restoring their friendship will just bring him peace. And it's for his sake. It's not for hers. It's not actually atoning for anything that he's done. Yeah.
One of the lines is, I can feel you smoothing me over. Like, which she's a rough edge in his life that he just needs to sand down and kind of just make it okay. Which, again, I feel like if you've been through a breakup, you understand that urge, or just even sort of like a unrequited love that you're trying to get over.
Or something that was not resolved properly.
Yeah. The urge is there because we want resolution. What we want is good, like a righteous resolution where things are made right and correct. But if you can't get that, you have to kind of cope. Yeah. And almost pretend a little bit like it's okay, you know? I don't like that song musically. It's not my cup of tea. I do believe at the beginning it feels like she's singing in a weird tempo and time for the actual beat of the music.
Yeah, I'll say I don't remember this song or a lot of the songs on this album musically. Like I've listened to the album twice. Only twice, I confess. But that's kind of my job, is to give first impressions here. Yeah. And there's just, aside from the couple of songs that we've mentioned, Willow and No Body, No Crime especially, there's, to me, just a lot that's forgettable. Like, I'm looking over my notes and I'm like, I don't remember what that sounded like at all.
And I don't think it's because the sound of the album is bad. I just think that folklore is meshed together in a way that is very cohesive yet distinct, and it does have a lot of the like a real story arc plot. Like it you could play it in its entirety as a set, and it has the emotional depth,
it's dynamic that way.
From beginning to end. Evermore, I feel like it starts high with Willow, and then you know get a little low with Champagne Problems. Gold Rush picks it back up again, and then it kind of falls into this like mellow sadness for most of the rest of the album.
I think the the happiness that went on Folklore, the summer themes, the happiness that we don't see here because it's supposed to be the sad album. It gave Folklore a kind of tantalizing hope where all those connections, like with the trifecta and everything, it really got you thinking about the songs and how they related. And I believe that those connections are here on Evermore. I'm just not enthused about finding them because it's such a downer.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about the context for the album, that really makes a lot of sense. Folklore came out a couple months into COVID when we were all kind of like, yeah, this will be over in a couple months. Right, guys? Right? Help. And then Evermore comes out nearly 6 or 7 months later, maybe 6, I don't know, a few months later in December, and we're not near the end of COVID. We're just solidly kind of sitting in the, oh my gosh, what is happening?
The world has gone insane.
Everything is wrong. People are dying. And yeah, it fit the mood of the people, I think. Yeah. But do I want to revisit it? Not so much.
Not so much.
Not for me personally. I'm having a hard time selling you and making you a Swiftie on this album because it's not one of my favorites. But
every artist, not every album can be a gem. I'm just going to say that.
I will say that there are Swifties out there who would die on this hill, who would say Evermore is better than Folklore. It's one of their favorite albums out there.
I think they should send us an email and tell us why.
I would love that. I want the perspective because I know that there's stuff that I'm missing on this album because musically it doesn't hit for me, so I don't play it as much as some of the other albums, but help us, Swifties. Swifties everywhere. Help us.
The bat signal has gone up.
It's just TS, like in the one music video with on Reputation. Never mind. You don't.
I remember the music video where there's all the different.
Why? Like all the words have left me today, and I can't remember any references to any of her work.
Look what you made me do.
Yes.
With all the different tunes.
Yeah, I think it is.
I thought you were going for a T.S. Eliot reference for a second there, and I was like, I'm here. What do you need?
What do you need? I've got you. Well, she was in Cats.
Don't remind me.
I never saw the movie. I don't plan to, but she was in it, and she loves cats, so it all ties together.
Well, if people do want to email us and sell us on this album,
please.
How should they do that? What is the address to which they should send their missive?
They should send their missive to Make Me a Swiftie at diecastmediagroup.com.
Wow, what a mouthful.
It'll be in the show notes. You can also send us a direct message or leave a comment for us on one of our videos on Instagram with the handle at Make Me a Swiftie, also on TikTok. And if you'd like to support us.
Oh, we're on YouTube too.
Oh yeah, we are on YouTube.
Do we let people make YouTube comments? Because that can get scary.
We sure do. But our channel is DieCast Media Group.
But you can search Make Me a Swiftie and it'll come up.
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah. If you'd like to support us, always appreciated, never demanded, you can visit us at our Patreon, and the link will also be in the show notes. Who are we thanking, Emily?
We are thanking Joseph, our editor, the magic man.
Lots of love.
We are also thanking Rebecca, our social media manager, because we don't want to do that job.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks.
Thanks also to Talitha, our design lead, who comes up with our amazing graphics for each episode.
Who literally designs a new microphone every week. Bless.
And thank you for listening.
We
really appreciate it.
Who shows up here every 2 weeks to listen to us.
Hey. That would be you, dear listener.
You, dear listener. And guess what we're listening to in next 2 weeks?
What are we listening to?
Midnights.
Midnights. You like Midnights?
I love Midnights.
All right. Let's do this thing.